Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. I am your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm in conversation with a very, very accomplished and senior professional from Bangalore, India, SC Sharada. Sharda, welcome to the show.
Good morning, Ashutosh. Thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you so much for agreeing to be here. Sharda is the founder of SC Sharada and Associates, which is a firm of company secretaries. She's a regional mentor with Life Beyond Cancer, and we'll talk a little bit about this. So Sharda, let's talk a little bit about your organization that you have built into such a powerful entity, SC Sharada and Associates. Tell me about the work you do.
Okay. Ashutosh, like you have introduced, I'm a company secretary. I belong to this, I'm a member of the Institute of Company Secretaries of India, which is a premier professional body, which is set up under the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. So by profession, I'm a company secretary, and perhaps if I can say, it's also by passion, because it's now 30 years since I'm a company secretary. 91 was when I qualified, and I still find it interesting every day to be doing, the company secretary job. Because there are so many challenges here, and each day is a new day, and we are able to deliver solutions to clients. So the first 15 years, I served one or two organizations as a company secretary where I was an employee. But then I turned an entrepreneur in 2006, and I said, why should I not start on my own? This is a great platform which our institute provides, this profession where we can set up our own practice. And here I am catering to a number of clients, a number of corporates. So they could be startups, they could be multinational companies, joint ventures. They could also be trusts, societies, not-for-profit organizations. So I have the privilege of being privy to so many things happening in so many organizations.
I'm sure.
And that's what keeps it so interesting.
I'm sure. So tell me, for a lot of our young viewers and listeners, what is the role of a company secretary in an organization?
Okay. So while the role is actually multidisciplinary, I would like to start with a little bit of concept about the corporate structure and where we fit in. The first thing I would say is we have the distinction of being the only person in the organization. There's only one person who can be a company secretary. Because you are accountable and responsible for the compliances, unlike other jobs where there could be many people in the same grade. So that is something which is a privilege to us. Now, if you look at a corporate structure, it is the shareholders who are supreme. They are the owners of the business.
Correct.
And they appoint the board of directors, who are actually trustees. And they run the company on behalf of the shareholders in the interest of the company. But today, as the law stands, Ashutosh, the responsibility of the directors has become multifold. And what the law expects is that they are accountable not only to protect the interests of the shareholders who appointed them, but also the larger society. And that's where all this concept of CSR, ESG, all that has come about. Okay, so if I can call these board of directors as the conscience of the corporate, as a legal person, then I can proudly say, as a company secretary, that I am the conscience keeper.
Wonderful. Okay.
I'm a conscience keeper of the board, which is delivering value to the entire society. So through them, we have a role to play. We have independent roles to play. And we are the ears, eyes, you can say hands, legs, maybe not the mouth, because we are not the mouthpieces of the board unless we have an authority. So I could very proudly say that we are the conscious keepers of corporate India.
Very interesting. And you just spoke about fiduciary responsibilities. Now, there are executive board members and there are non-executive board members.
Right.
But under today's laws, the fiduciary responsibility of both is the same.
Yes.
What should the role of a company secretary be in corporate governance and in fiduciary compliance?
Yeah. So when you talk of fiduciary compliances, yes, there are both executive directors and non-executive directors, but as the position goes, the executive directors, they'll very clearly laid down responsibilities, which is laid down by the framework of law. Also, internally, the board lays down what they are responsible for. For some of these, when you have already identified a person as who is accountable for that, then it may not extend on the other directors, except if they have not played their part well enough. If there are independent directors, they haven't exercised their discretion, exercised their judgment in the interest of the company, then they could be held responsible, right? That is one part of it. Now, as a company secretary, like I was telling you, I'm a conscience keeper. My responsibility is to be available to all of them,
right,
equally and equitably, with my advice, with my wisdom. So if I can just give an analogy, if you look at Mahabharata, there were two rivals, right? You had the Pandavas and you had the Kauravas.
Yeah.
And of course, you had the Bhishma Pitamaha, and all of were trying to protect the throne. And then there were so many things happening around. But there was one person who would always be neutral. He would be the go-to person. He was an epitome of wisdom, and that's
right.
Vidura.
Correct.
Okay, it may be a little far-fetched, but still within this small framework, what I want to convey is that's what I need to be. As a company secretary, I need to be neutral. When I'm dealing with various stakeholders, not only the board members. So I need to be available to all of them with the right kind of information, the right kind of advice, and make sure that they run the company within the framework of law. They are on the right side of the law.
What a great example. So in fact,
that's a responsibility.
I would probably add that, Vidur was also the keeper of the dharma.
Exactly.
And I've always seen all the company secretaries I have worked with in exactly the same light, that you have to ensure that the dharma of the company is maintained.
Yes. See, because this dharma is defined by law, it's also defined by the board.
True.
So the culture which is set up by the chair, by the board at the top, is the dharma for the company. And as long as my value systems meet with the organization's value systems, then I can really perform well. Now, the same thing takes a different dimension when I'm in a practice. So what for me, integrity and diligence is, utmost. So I don't care whether I lose a client, but I want to make sure if they ask, if there are some wrongful demands, asking me to do something, which will help them to, beat the law, then I would not like to do it. So these are some personal value systems which a professional can set up for themselves, which is important.
Very important
to be a professional.
And one last question before I move to the next segment. There is a lot of discussion on transparency in boardrooms, and every day we hear something new in some company somewhere in the country, and the need for transparency becomes even more important. You just told me that integrity is a very critical value that you have. How does a company secretary ensure transparency in governance?
Yeah, if you look at, there are several pillars of corporate governance. If I can just name four, one will be fairness, one will be definitely transparency, one is responsibility of the board, then fourth is accountability. All of them are interrelated. So when I look at transparency, because you've asked about transparency, now let me look at specifically to my own function as a company secretary, as part of the governance. Now, I am mostly related to how do I help the board to take decisions, because this is the supreme decision-making body. After the shareholders, it's the board of directors who are driving the strategy, right? Now, how do they make decisions? Let me come back to some very basic function that we as company secretaries are responsible. We drive the board meetings. Now, right from deciding on the date of the board meeting to the length of the notice that you give a board meeting, to the kind of information that is circulated to the board, who are both executive and non-executive directors, then actually facilitating, conducting a free and fair board meeting, enabling the discussions. Though it's the responsibility of the chair, I as a company secretary have a role to play in ensuring all of this, making sure these decisions are properly recorded and then they get implemented. Right through, there should be transparency, which is very important, because the journey which the decision takes, or the process which is involved in the decision making, is as important as the decision itself. So transparency is paramount. Now, second, the law also mandates transparency and disclosure. For example, the basic law is our Companies Act. But then if you are a listed company, you have SEBI, you have income tax, you have POSH Act where there are disclosures, you have GST. There are so many legislations which are applicable to a corporate entity. Now, all through there are disclosures and there is an expected amount of transparency, right? Without breaching some of the internal confidentiality of the companies, how do we balance the transparency and confidentiality element? This is the role of a company secretary. Apart from this, we could also have internal rules and regulations, which again, as I said, is the culture of the organization. So everywhere we need to be. So I would look at ourselves. See, for example, when I say conscience keepers, many times boards also feel we function as sentries. When you say sentry, you become a gatekeeper.
Correct.
But are you an enabling and empowering gatekeeper? Right? So I would look at myself as a company secretary who will be a catalyst and who can deliver value to the organization. You know? I focus on the guardrails, but I make sure that I open the right doors so that within the framework of law, the board is able to function. So that's how I look at.
Very interesting. So Sharda, let's now move to the next segment, which is life beyond cancer. Tell me about your own journey and how you got involved with this organization.
Yeah, the Life Beyond Cancer, the full name is Sanjeevani Life Beyond Cancer.
Okay.
Why did I get into that? Because I can proudly say I'm a cancer victor. We are part of a group which says we don't want to call ourselves cancer survivors.
Yeah.
We have survived, but we are also thriving, and we are helping so many others to have a better life. So Sanjeevani Life Beyond Cancer is an NGO which is again set up by a very dynamic lady, Ruby Aluwalia. She's a very senior professional in the Western Railways, and she's, I would say, my soul sister because she also went through the same cancer. Yeah. And what she did was she said, let me help others who are in need. It could be money, it could be several programs, it could be immunity programs. There are many programs which the NGO has, and they are spread all over the country, including the remote northeast areas, which remain untouched. Because otherwise, in the metro cities, you have all these facilities, but in the smaller towns and villages, you don't have. So it's a very beautiful network of doctors and the volunteers. And fortunately, about 3-4 years back, she was in Bangalore. Through a referral, she came and met me and said, why don't you get involved in this? So currently, I am the regional mentor. So I mentor the staff members of Sanjeevani. I do participate in their programs so that there are awareness programs where I can share my own experiences. So similar organizations which I want to focus on, Ashutosh, apart from Life Beyond Cancer, is also a small group of cancer victors and caregivers in Bangalore. We have set up an organization called Think Hope Support Group.
Okay.
It is supported by many hospitals, and we have several programs. One is we meet every month and keep ourselves abreast of what are the latest happenings in the world of treatments, right? And then we are there for each other, for mentors, for mentoring other patients. Right. So we call ourselves Mitras, right? Then we also have corporate connect programs. If a corporate wants us to come and do a free program on creating awareness about cancer as well as healthy living, we do that voluntarily. So these are some of the things which we do. And I feel very motivated to continue to be there in this space.
So tell me, you have been, you're a cancer victor in your own words. When you found out about the problem, what was your reaction?
Let me be honest, Ashutosh. I am also, now I can very proudly say I'm victor or whatever I call myself, but I am a normal human being. Sure. The usual normal emotions were there. And the definite regret of why me, why not somebody else? Correct. What wrong did I do? And it was breast cancer. And the first thought which came to my mind was, I remember very well I have 2 sons. When they were born, the doctors had told me clearly that please continue breastfeeding as far as possible, which I did till they were 1 year. And then I made so many arrangements to make sure that I continue with my profession. With all that struggle, the first thing that hit me was, I did all that, and why did this strike me? It took me a long while to understand that that need not be the only reason. So these were the first emotions, but thankfully I have a very supportive family. So it was maybe only a minute or so I had that flashing in my mind, but I quickly came back, gathered, and said, what is it I need to do next?
Very interesting. So for and I've spoken to many cancer victims or cancer survivors on my show. A question I often wonder is, how does one remain mentally strong? As you said, anybody who gets this dreaded seed disease is a human being. So what did it take you to remain mentally strong during the discovery and the recovery period?
I think the first thing was I had faith in myself and in Almighty. Something told me that I will survive this crisis, if I can call it so. And if I have to survive, what is it I need to do next? Because if I keep regretting and looking back, that doesn't help. I need to keep looking forward. So some of the life lessons which I have from this entire cancer journey, I have penned it down into a 20-point, a small write-up, and I keep distributing whenever people want to read that and they stay motivated. One of the first thing is, I think, to accept the situation.
Okay.
Accept and adapt. It's easier said than done, but the moment we accept that I have about a year of treatment to take and my life is going to be different after this, then we are fine with it. When I say I accept, Ashutosh, even a small thing like the most visible thing, what happens when we undergo chemotherapy is loss of hair.
Yeah.
And for a woman, it's our crowning glory and we feel it is. But let me tell you, thanks to my own family support and also the kind of environment I am living, there's no more a stigma. So I didn't really bother when the hair fell. I would just put on a dupatta, go attend all my board meetings and lead a normal life. So first thing is to accept that. And second thing, when I'm accepting that I'm not available for somebody sometime, I need to make sure I delegate my work. So thanks to my colleagues who rose up to the occasion, I was open. And again, when I talk about transparency, you talked about in corporate governance, I also want to talk about transparency in my own personal life. So I did not hide this condition. I wrote to all my clients that this is what has been identified and I have, I'm undergoing treatment. I may not be available always, but we continue to serve you.
Oh, no.
And trust me, everybody was there with us and my life actually has become better, I would say, in all ways after cancer. So I talked about acceptance and adaptability. Second, to be having a milestone approach.
Okay.
Especially chemo, you have about 6 rounds, 8 rounds, 10 rounds, depending on your illness, the grade of illness. So if you look at each one as one milestone and then look back and say, I have finished this, I'm moving to the next one. That helps you keep very motivated. And then living in the moment.
Right.
Kya pata kal ho ya na ho. So living in the moment is so very important. And I think that is something which I learned during this crisis.
Very well said. Very well said. And my last question to you, before I move to some questions personally, there is a significant increase we are seeing in cancer. I mean, I will tell you after the show, but I have lost 2 very, very close people to cancer at very young ages. Why is there an increase in the incidence of cancer, or is it just that there is more awareness?
I think both the points are true, Ashutosh. There is more awareness and people are going and either having checkups done regularly or when they find the slightest change in their body, they do go and consult a doctor. There's no more the stigma of hiding. There is a huge awareness which is happening all around us. But unfortunately, the incidence also is high. It could be due to various reasons. It could be genetics. It could be your lifestyle. Stress related, which is, I think, a very, very important reason. Lack of sleep. We are not sleeping on time. Our food habits, the pollution, the polluted atmosphere in which we are living, the kind of food we eat. There are so many factors which are there. And this is a rogue cell, right? Cancer is a rogue cell.
Absolutely.
So it keeps on multiplying. And sometimes we don't even know what's the reason. Because I have heard perfectly healthy people who are who suddenly identify that they have cancer.
I agree.
So the reasons are many. This is what the doctors say.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to, so what we have all learned, the cancer members, victors, are to change our lifestyle, especially with food, sleep, exercise. 3 things, very important.
Okay. So now let's move to a few questions for you personally. Our viewers and listeners love to get to know our guest a little more. When I was speaking to you, you mentioned that one person who's played a very significant role in your life and in fact has actually stepped back in his role is your husband. Do you want to talk about what his role has been in your success?
Sure, Ashutosh. So this is a significant, I think my marriage and raising a family has been a significant milestone, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, there were so many challenges raising 2 boys with a full-time profession, but when I look back, I feel very happy with it. And coming back to my husband, yes, he's been a very significant, inspiring person in my life, I would say, because very rarely we find people who do not have the ego. They say, fine, if you want to go ahead with your career, you move ahead, I'll take a step back. Because when both of us got married and both of us had our careers, he was an entrepreneur right from the beginning. But over a period of time, his life goals kept changing. My life goal was continuing with the profession. But then when he realized that I'm very serious about becoming an entrepreneur and starting up on my own, my children were still small. He said, let me spend time with them and focus on them. He said, I'll give you my office, I give you everything. But it was not just saying that, he actually meant it. Because today when we talk of role reversals, I can proudly say that he's managing the entire family, right from the kitchen. So I don't bother about any of it. I can completely focus on what I am doing. It's not just the role reversal part, wherever required, whether it was during my cancer times or any other support to my extended family, anything, he's always there. His simple mantra is keep moving forward, don't look back. They're simple words, but keep moving forward. And by the grace of God and his support, I have been able to do that.
Fascinating. My next question to you is that for someone who was a senior professional for the first 15 years of your life in corporates and then became an entrepreneur and has built such a large practice, from where you stand today, what does success mean to Sharda?
It's an interesting question. Success, of course, has many milestones, and again, it's a journey, right? I don't think we can reach a destination and say I'm successful. Today, especially in the last 1 to 2 years, for me, success has taken a different dimension. Earlier, I had to make sure that I earn enough for myself and my family. Then when I started, I had to make sure that I'm able to take care of my employees. Today, it's gone beyond that because I have a process set, I have trustworthy employees. Today, I am looking at what can I give back. Somewhere after my recovery from cancer, that's when I felt there's only one life that I have, right? It's not that I can give up my entire profession and only look at doing some social service. That's not possible. So I had been thinking, how do I integrate? So within my life, how do I integrate my life with both my profession and then giving back something to the society? So today I feel an immense sense of satisfaction if I'm able to touch some lives, through these NGOs. For example, I'm also associated with Matru Foundation. I recently was, appointed as the trustee. This is run by an international athlete Paralympian called Malti Hulla in Bangalore again. And this is for the specially able children.
Okay.
So I'm not going and running it every day. So within my own network, I made sure that somebody is able to supply grocery. There is somebody who is able to supply rice. I'm able to do something with their governance structure. So these are things which are giving me a lot of satisfaction. Similarly, I always felt I must do something back to my fraternity of company secretaries. So today within the institute, I do have some role to play on the standards board, on the secretarial standards board. I was the past chairman of the Bangalore chapter.
Wonderful.
These are not just positions, but I look at it as an opportunity where we can do something, we can give back something. So there are various facets, and I feel immensely contented with where I am today.
Terrific. So Sharda, my last question to you, and this is for so many people who will listen to our conversation. For someone who's reached the top, what would your advice be to a young company secretary who's starting off on her or his journey as a qualified company secretary?
I don't know, Ashutosh, whether I've reached the top or not, because the point keeps moving.
I agree, absolutely.
Yeah,
and you
keeps
keep going
moving.
higher, absolutely.
Yeah. For a young company secretary, or for that matter, any professional, I think it's important. It is important to have a goal, but I think you have to focus on the journey. What is the quality of journey that you are traversing, and what do you want to do for yourself and the organizations that you are involved and the people that you are involved with? I think that's very important. Ours is we are in the knowledge industry, right? So as a company secretary, when you start off, or even now for us, you should have thirst for knowledge. You have to constantly keep learning, relearning, and unlearning, because the laws are constantly changing. So thirst for knowledge is very important. Diligence, integrity, and if I have to connect back to the first part of this conversation that we had, can we become value creators for the organization? Can I be a catalyst? So can I give solutions instead of posing problems? The focus should be on that. I may be very, very knowledgeable, but how is it going to add value to either the organization or to the client? I think these are all aspects which a company secretary has to keep in mind. And today, I can say sky is the limit, because there are many within this profession, there are different roles that we can play as a company secretary, and the choices are plenty, unlike 30 years back. So there's a bright future for them, as long as they mold themselves as good professionals, and not to forget that basically we need to be good human beings.
Wonderful. Sharda, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you for talking to me about the role of company secretaries and how you have built your own practice. And thank you for sharing a personal journey with cancer and all your involvement with the various NGOs that are supporting cancer. Thank you again, and good luck.
Thank you so much, and namaste, Ashutosh. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.